designated as points that you need to address.
Yes, sir.
You describe what that might mean. What's in general like an investigative point or investigative cue that you need to focus on?
Anything that we hear or see that based on the limited amount of knowledge we have at that particular point just creates a unknown, something that may need further investigation, something that maybe doesn't necessarily correspond with the evidence on scene or with the statement made by somebody. It's something that just we need to follow up on. It can't just be left alone or accepted as fact.
Guys, thanks for popping in.
What are some of the physical observations? I'm going to ask you about physical observations of Mr. Murdaugh. Did he appear to be?
So, guys, this is
at least
live
outwardly,
right
did he appear
now.
to be upset?
This is the
Yes, sir, he
trial.
did.
Were you
Alex
close enough to
Murdaugh,
observe
he's
whether or
got
not he
it.
actually cried or had tears in his eyes?
Is alleged
He
to
was
have killed
upset.
his wife and son.
Definitely upset. I got up to him, again, like I said, I spoke to him.
In
on
South
at
Carolina,
least
he was an
2 different
attorney.
occasions. And he was breathing hard. His facial expressions were that of, torment. But did I physically see him crying? I did not. He was sweating, but he wasn't crying.
I just
What'd you
did
observe
a
about his
short about
clothing?
him too.
Clothing was clean. Didn't see anything that stuck out, and obviously no dirt or blood or anything that indicated he had been rolling around on the ground or that he had, been involved or anything up to that point.
I'm going to ask you about something you do when you're arriving on a scene, particularly if it's a homicide. Do you have a practice of phoning or having
ALR,
dispatch
a long
send you
time.
the
Yes, it
911?
has.
Yes, we do.
Why would you do that?
We get a lot of information from 911 calls, more so
Guys, just
than
hit that like
the
button.
average person, I think, would
We're watching
believe.
the trial. This is live. It's
And
happening
it's-
right now.
Over the years, we've had several cases where had we not gone back and looked at that initial 911 call, we would have missed some very important information or information that could have cleared up some unknowns. Those points of investigation you talked about much sooner. So in our investigative process, that's now one of the things that we try to do relatively quickly. In this case, with the scene being fluid and not knowing if we had suspects on the loose, I opted to go ahead and do that. And it took a minute for them to get caught up, as busy as they were, but they were able to get on the phone with me and play
Shout out,
the
Heather. Thanks for
911
popping
call
in.
for me.
So were you able to hear the 911 call?
I was.
And are you listening to that 911 call both for content, but also critically and trying to examine the things that are said?
Oh, absolutely. We're listening for noises in the background, exactly what is said versus what we see, so forth.
So with that awareness of everything that was said on the 911 call, do you then take that information and apply it to the scene?
Yes, sir.
And are you applying that information to try to see if it checks out, to see if things are consistent with what you heard on the 911 call?
Yes, sir.
And on the 911 call, did Mr. Murdaugh indicate that he had tried to examine the bodies or check their pulses?
Yes, I believe dispatch stated, do not touch if you haven't. And Mr. Murdaugh replied that he had touched them, checking them,
To check and see if they're breathing?
and which would be expected. Absolutely.
On examination, Mr. Murdaugh, did you have a chance to look at his hands?
Again, I did talk to him. Yes, sir.
Did you have a chance to look at his shirt?
I did.
And did you see any indication that there was any blood on any part of his body?
No, sir. Not,
Visible.
again, just physically with my observations, no microscope there. I did not see any blood anywhere.
And in your experience with viewing Paul's body, had you physically touched Paul, would there have been blood left on your hands?
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation.
Response.
Physically saw the body, and he cannot testify to the locations that would be touched and whether it would transfer.
Does he know what location he touched?
I'll lay a foundation. I'll ask a few more questions. Mr. Chapman, Captain Chapman, going back to your experience in life-saving procedures, are there common areas that someone might touch to check the pulse if they were indicating their check breathing?
Objection, Your Honor. The question is, where did Mr. Murdaugh touch the body for a pulse? Was it the neck?
Objections overruled. The Prosecutor is asking the question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Is there common areas that someone might check a body to check for, if they've indicated they're checking for breathing, are there common areas that someone might check?
I believe the most common is the neck and the wrist that you see that, people with limited training would probably use. I'm sure there are others with medical training.
So the neck and the wrist. And please tell me where Paul's wrists were located when you discovered his body.
They're up underneath his body.
And was Paul's neck accessible? If his wrists were underneath his body, was his neck accessible?
I think you can get the portions of his neck. I don't know that you'd be able to get under. I mean, he's face down, and I didn't
this
try
is a
to get
pretty-
a pulse, but where I know that you would check would be
This one's going to be pretty intense, I think.
without
Absolutely.
manipulating the body in some fashion, I guess.
And if you had to manipulate the body, and if you were going to try to check his pulse via wrist or neck, with what you saw that night, would your hands be bloody?
If I had attempted, they would have been, yes.
There he is.
I'm going to ask you another investigative point that you observed. Did Mr. Murdaugh in the 911 call indicate he was going to retrieve a firearm?
Yes, sir. That actually came out while I was en route as a caution from the dispatcher, but it was also present on the call when I monitored the call.
Having listened to the phone call, having listened to the 911 tape, what was your reaction, or what was the cue that you were fixated on as it relates to the retrieval of the firearm? What is going through your head at that point?
Well, that he's scared. I mean, that he believes there may be somebody there that possibly whoever he believes hurt them may come back and hurt him.
And sure, that's your estimation, right? That's what you're thinking was
So
going
that's what I
on.
was thinking. Yeah, I mean, and that's what I believe pretty much anybody would think if he was there present with them and got spooked. And because I believe the verbiage on the 911 is he states, I'm going to get a gun that I don't feel safe. And dispatch tries to tell him we would rather you not. And he states again that I'm not going to show it to the officers. I'm not going to hurt anybody. I'll put it away, but I feel unsafe. So I understand that.
All right, and listen to the 911 call critically. What then did you observe towards the end after retrieving a firearm that you would cue on to in your investigative process?
After knowing that he had went and got the gun, knowing that he stated he was unsafe and that he went and got the firearm, when he came back, as soon as he got back to the scene,
Darren,
the only thing I believe that was odd from that point was
guy's name is Alex
that he wanted
Murdaugh.
to separate the call or cancel the call to call family
Let's see if they
prior
show
to
him.
anyone's arrival. It was the only thing that just struck me as odd. Again, it's just a point of investigation. Up to that point in the phone call, he had asked repeatedly, where are they? Are y'all coming? Are y'all coming? Are y'all coming? I'm not safe. I'm going to go get a gun. And then when he got back to the scene, are y'all here yet? How far out are they? And then it was, I need to call my family, and the phone disconnected.
But he supposedly, this
And when we
guy
refer
right
to the
next to this
scene,
guy right here, right over there. Him
the
right
scene
here.
is obviously, does that
Murdered,
uncover
allegedly
part
murdered
of
his
what was,
wife
fenced off with
and
crime
son.
scene tape? Does that, when we're referring to
and
a scene?
this
That would
is
have been the
live
primary
trial right
scene,
now.
yes, sir.
But in your mind, what does the scene also entail? What other things?
Well, I mean, the only thing that, the phone could potentially extend that scene, the phone call, excuse me, could potentially extend that scene as far as entering a crime scene and not being able to introduce evidence, or exiting a crime scene without being able to take away evidence. And by his own admission, he left the scene, went to his house and got a gun. Potentially, that could make the house an extension of the crime scene.
Because that's what he indicated on the phone call.
And that's what he indicated,
Is Mr. Murdaugh considered part of that scene, the scene?
of course. He's inside that area when we arrive, and I mean, he would be factored into everything.
And would that justify or explain why you might pay particular attention to him?
Yeah, it's
Sure. I
it is
mean, we
dark.
would
It wants
anybody.
to be a
that's
dark
there.
one. Supposedly they found gunshot residue on his
And
seatbelt.
I'm asking you this again. I know you've answered.
They
You've had
found
a chance
bullets
to review
inside of
body
the
worn
victims
camera
that
from
matched bullets he
Deputy
owned.
Green and McDowell,
Yes,
correct?
sir.
Did your, after those videos cease recording because the crime
Adam,
scene
this
had
is
been
the
secured, did
this is
you have
day
an
one.
opportunity
I
then
don't believe there'd be
to
a verdict
continue your
today.
investigation and continue your line of work?
We did.
And those, these activities would not have been captured on the video because it had been shown. Is that
That's
correct?
correct.
Did you have an opportunity to physically observe, meaning watch Mr. Murdaugh while your deputies and your officers were performing their tasks?
I did.
What were a couple of the things that you noticed that stuck out to you when physically observing Mr. Murdaugh and how he was either behaving or what he was doing?
Again, I mean, he was emotional. Distress on his face. I didn't see him cry. Not everyone cries. I don't have an issue with that. There were times that when we got to certain places or asked certain questions that you could see a slight demeanor change or body language shift. And, you know, I took note of that, but again, just as a point of investigation. But he remained at the scene. He wasn't forced to say. He was cooperative, but he did, you know, there were times that you could see reaction to different things.
Okay. Did you notice a reaction? Did you ever notice him tracking your movements or your officers' movements?
I know when I was there when I ordered Detective Murdaugh to take a GSR kit and explain that how
That's
the
not a
kit
bad
worked
question.
and why we were taking it. And he was very cooperative with giving the kit.
Yeah, this is
And we
live.
really
Yeah,
didn't have an
right
issue
now.
there. Later, was looking at some, I wouldn't call them tire tracks. I'd call them tire impressions because there's no dirt there, it's just grass. But we noticed there was quite a bit of tire impressions that ran around the backside of the hangar.
And we'll get to the tire tracks in a second. You mentioned a term just a second ago called GSR.
Yes, sir.
If you wouldn't mind, could you explain to us just
Sure.
what
I
that is?
apologize for that. So a gunshot residue kit is just a kit. We use specific kits provided by SLED because the kits are then sent off for testing, but it's meant to test for the
Wow, Meg,
presence
that's
of
really good to
gunshot
know.
residue. They're very non-invasive. They have little ampules. You open up a sterile kit, put a set of gloves on, open the kit up, and you'll dab one of the sterile collectors around on the front and back of the hand of an individual, package those up, tape it off, seal it, date it, time it, case number, and then that's eventually sent off to SLED. We were asked, I spoke earlier and said the only thing that my detectives physically collected prior to SLED's crime scene's arrival was that GSR kit. It was done by us because there is a time limit on those. And you can't always wait. I know everybody sometimes thinks it's, well, why don't we just wait and do all this tomorrow? But GSR has a 6-hour limit on it. So we had to collect that night, and we did so. And that's what I was referring to when I say GSR, is a gunshot residue test kit.
And Captain Chapman, related to the GSR retrieval, I know you mentioned that time limit, the expiring time limit. Is it your understanding that time, does that time limit refer to humans or just things in general, objects in general?
That refers to when we collect a GSR sample from an individual. That is our restriction from the SLED lab, is that it has to be collected within 6 hours of the estimated time of firing the weapon. And again, that kit, I mean, it's just as much for any type of exculpatory as it is conviction. We use it a lot of times to exonerate someone as much as we would to convict.
Wow,
Going
Meg, so
back
it's
to,
judges and attorneys all in the Murdaugh family.
Murdaugh's
Him right there,
observations.
Harriet, glasses.
Did he appear to fixate on one body or the other that were there?
Especially watching the camera footage, I didn't notice quite as much in person, but later scrutinizing the body cam footage.
Olivia, thank you so much. Yep.
He does appear to fixate more on his son than his wife, but that's in that limited amount of body cam footage that I have.
All right, you mentioned before the
question,
tire
Darren.
tracks that you observed.
Yes, or tire impressions.
Tire impressions.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
let's set the scene. Set the scene for us, if you would,
Sure.
please. Describing the grass, and we've heard a lot about, there's rain, but moisture. Describe the scene, if you would, on that grass.
So if you
Captain,
come
so
into the
from what I've
property
heard,
and you go down the
pretty
dirt road
damning
with
evidence.
Paul on your left, as you
but
see in the
innocent
picture
until proven
before you all,
guilty.
That
But it's-
gravel or dirt
it's
road
pretty
between the
bad.
kennels and the
What do you guys
what's
think?
referred to as the airport or the airplane hangar eventually ends in grass, a large grass area that separates that hangar from another shed. And in that area is where Mr. Murdaugh's Suburban was parked with the flashers and the headlights were pointed towards Paul's body. But that entire area there is grass as opposed to the dirt or gravel lane between the two structures. And there's some very obvious at that time impressions in the grass, but they're not tracks like you think of that we could cast a track out of dirt, but you can't cast an impression that's laid over wet grass from the dew. I mean, you're not going to be able to do anything with that other than to document it. And I did notice them, and I actually asked Mr. Murdaugh if he could tell me, because was unaware of the body cam footage at the time. Could you tell me what direction you came from? And he told me that he pointed and said he had come from the residence and pulled up here, turned around and went back the same route, confirming that the tracks around his vehicle, the Suburban, were his. And he said there should be two sets from where I arrived the first time, left and got the gun and came back. And I asked about the other sets that you could see. And there was one in particular that appeared to come close to Maggie's body,
Yep.
possibly. You had to have the light just right. And it just happened to be that I noticed it looking at the ground in front of
Why would they not?
Mr. Murdaugh's vehicle, because the lights were shining on Paul that you could see that.
To the tire tracks, did you and Detective Rutland spend some time attempting to identify where those tracks could have come from?
We did try to follow them. One thing that started to bother me was that we didn't have a vehicle. We're trying to figure out how Maggie and Paul got to the kennels. It's a pretty substantial distance from the residence to the kennels, the property, and I don't know an exact, but I'm guessing, probably 1,000 yards from the kennels to the house. And it's 10 o'clock at night, so I don't know what time they got there, but it's a pretty long walk, especially if you're planning on walking back in the dark. And did they drive a vehicle? Did they drive a four-wheeler or a UTV or whatever, a golf cart? But we see Mr. Murdaugh's vehicle, and because he left it as instructed where it was. But we were trying to determine if any of these other tracks lined up with the position of any other vehicles that were on the property. There was a UTV with a flat tire. There was another a half-ton pickup in the shed across the grass portion from the hangar. I was thinking maybe those tracks would line up, or the impressions that were in the grass would line up with that vehicle.
Did they appear to line up with
They
either
did
of those
not.
vehicles?
They did not.
Y'all make sure you like the video as you
part
guys are
of,
coming in. Hit the like button, please.
Your
Get some more
investigation
people
on-
in here.
Flash forward in just a little bit. Did you operate and record 2 drone videos of the property?
I did.
I'm going to show you. I hand you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 187 and 188. Briefly take a look at those 2 videos, DVDs if you would. Let me know if you recognize them.
Yes, sir. Both of these discs I have marked as having previously viewed and confirmed their authenticity, one on the
I
25th
wonder what he
of
just
this
said.
month and one on the 26th.
Anybody read lips? What did that? What
These
did
would be the
it?
drone video recordings?
Yes.
What do you think he said?
Thank you. Your Honor, we would move to admit these into evidence, I believe, without objection.
Any objection? Yeah, then without objection, and ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a recess at this time. Please do not discuss it.
Ooh, so what do you guys think? They're taking a brief recess. 12. I like how they zoom in on the clock too. What do you guys think? So supposedly, allegedly, he murdered his wife, his son. They found gunshot residue on the seatbelt. Supposedly, the bullets that were removed from the victims matched bullets that were found in the house, like in boxes that were found in the house. Oof. Right. See, Lori, exactly. That's where lip reading would have come in handy. I want to know what they're chatting about. I wonder what he said. What do I think? So honestly, just like doing a bit of research on the case today, I remember hearing about this like a long time ago. I think this was like a year or two, maybe almost 2 years ago. I remember hearing about this case, and it was just kept getting put off and put off, but now they started it. And I don't know, with again, right? Innocent until proven guilty. But so far, I think the prosecution has done a pretty good job of putting forth the evidence to show that, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Well, I mean, well, let's see. I mean, there's a lot of trial left to go. That's for sure. So Meg says he is not going to get the death penalty. The state is not asking for it. Yeah, I heard you say that earlier. I wonder why. I mean, I wonder why they would not ask for it. Like, what would make them be like, okay, you know what? Maybe, I don't know, like if they lose the case, he walks. What do you think? Taylor definitely did it. He couldn't cover it up. He definitely did it after he couldn't cover up what his son did. Jason, I haven't heard yet. And happy birthday to Jason, by the way. Shout out, Jason. Happy birthday. Very compelling evidence, isn't it, so far? Oh, I didn't even know there was a documentary about it. Maybe we'll watch that as well. Show his face. That will tell me a lot. Yeah. Well, guys, the court is at recess right now. I don't know for how long, but I do know that this stream has been going on for a minute. Here's his face, though. This is from earlier.
Okay.
I noticed you shined your flashlight just a few seconds ago on the black vehicle. What did you shine your flashlight on just then?
You could see the shotgun leaning up against the side of that vehicle.
Were the flashers on the vehicle right there in the image?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
It's bad. Check the pulses.
Yes, This is the firearm you brought from inside the house?
Sir, yes, sir. I went and this is a long story. My son was in a boat wreck a few months back. He's been getting threats. Most stuff has been benign stuff we didn't take serious. Okay. He's been getting like punched. I know that's what it is.
Okay.
Was that when you previously testified that he mentioned the boat case or the boat wreck?
That's correct. Prior to me asking him anything about it, he did mention it.
Did you get home right when you called, or did you go to the house first? Where is the house?
I came to the house first. My mom has late stages Alzheimer's, and my dad is in the hospital.
Okay.
I left. I don't know what time. I can go back on my phone and tell you the exact times. Did you check?
Did I check what?
Did you check them?
We got medical guys that's what they're gonna do, okay?
What are they doing? Can they hurry?
They are, yes, sir. That gentleman that was out here already, he's one of the battalion chiefs, okay?
Right before that discussion, did
Ooh.
Mr. Murdaugh offer to go on his phone and check?
He did.
Time.
He did. He wanted to verify exactly the timing of his arrival.
How did you pull up? You from back there?
I went to the house and they weren't home, which was odd. I tried to call
Okay,
and then I knew they had been down here before I left to go to my mom's.
okay.
And so that is loaded.
Okay.
You might want to unload it. But I mean,
Is this the only firearm with you? This is the only one, or is there any more in the truck?
I believe that's it.
You think that's the only one? Okay.
I'm 99%.
Do you normally
certain that's
have
right.
any other firearms in your vehicle?
I don't, but
Okay.
occasionally there's a pistol in there.
Okay.
So you're putting something on your hands. What are you doing right there?
Those are just gloves, so I could put on my hand to limit the contamination of any evidence.
You put those on before you handle the firearm. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Just wait right here for me for a second, okay?
Copy.
What are you doing right now?
At this point, I'm walking back to my vehicle to secure that shotgun inside my vehicle.
I was about to ask that. Did he secure the firearm that he found?
You can actually see you holding it to the left of the screen. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's me holding the barrel of that shotgun.
Explain to us real quick a body worn camera. Where is that located and where are these images coming from?
I generally put it right here on my chest, dead center on my chest.
And how is it activated? How is it turned off? Can you explain that to the jury a little bit? as well?
So most of these cameras are activated in the patrol vehicles that deputies on patrol have. They're activated whenever you activate your blue lights. So as soon as I turn my blue lights on, it activates my dash camera as well as my body worn camera.
And then how do you ultimately turn it off?
It's got a button on the front of it that you can press. If it did not originally activate it, you would press that button to turn it on, to start the recording. And then whenever you're done recording, you press that same button to stop the recording.
In this particular instance, how did it get activated? Was it when you turned on your blue lights to run code to the scene?
That's correct. It was activated with my blue lights.
And I've used the term run code. Do you know what that means?
Yes.
And can you explain that to the jury, please?
Sure. Running code is just whenever you turn your lights on as well as your siren to get wherever you need to get fast.
When you're moving quickly to respond to an emergency situation.
That's correct.
Oh, I haven't yet. I need to watch it. I just found out there was one.
Go ahead, sir. Well, I've already spoken with Captain Deal.
Right there, you laid the shotgun inside your vehicle, is that correct?
That's correct. I laid it in front of the passenger seat in the front.
Did it remain there until it was turned over to SLED?
It did.
Go ahead, sir.
To the left of the screen, again, that's where the Paul was, is that correct?
That's correct. That's Paul laying on the ground.
And is that where you saw the water that you
It is.
described earlier?
It is.
Well, I've already spoken with Captain Deal. He's got crime scene in contact with them. He's also going to give us the assistance of a couple of field agents. Roger that. No,
They are dead, aren't
I
they?
just turned all those in.
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
Where are you now?
Wow.
What is Mr. Murdaugh doing at this particular time?
He's on the phone pacing around talking to someone. I'm not sure who he was talking to at that point.
Did he ask you to confirm if they were dead?
He did. He asked multiple times while I was on scene.
Did you ever see him, any tears, any physical tears?
I did not.
Did you ever see him approach the bodies?
I did not see him approach them. No.
Did you observe any visible blood on him?
There was no blood on him that I could see.
The bodies, as you saw them, was there a lot of blood around them given the injuries they had suffered?
Yes, there was a pool of blood around each of the bodies that extended out from the body.
All right. Yeah, the police are here now. The police are here now. That's my brother.
Okay. When was the last time you were here with them? Or talked to them or anything like that?
It was earlier tonight. I don't know the exact time, but
Okay.
I left. I was probably gone an hour and a half from my mom's, and I saw them about 45 minutes before that.
Okay.
I rode around with Paul for 2 hours this afternoon in the pickup truck.
That's your son, Paul? Okay.
Somebody go to check him.
Yes, sir. They've already checked them.
They did check him.
Yes, sir.
It's official that they're dead.
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
When you observed these victims, was it obvious that they had injuries incompatible with life?
Yes, any reasonable person that came upon those bodies would have come to a conclusion that they were deceased.
Sorry.
You're fine.
I'm very sorry.
See, this is one of those moments where
Call her. Yeah.
this is one of those moments where you look and you're like,
What's her name?
it's hard to determine, are they
Name's
sad
Maggie
because they
Murdaugh.
lost their
Margaret
wife and son,
Brandstetter Murdaugh.
or are they sad because they got caught?
How you doing?
What's her birthday?
Pause it right there. What did the defendant just say? Let me back it up.
What do y'all think?
Margaret Brandstetter Murdaugh. How you doing?
What did the defendant say right there?
So while I'm in the process of gathering information about the two victims from Mr. Murdaugh, somebody walks by behind me and he pauses what he's telling me to say, "Hey, how you doing?"
How you doing?
Yeah.
And who was that he said that to?
I'm not 100% certain. I believe it was a fire rescue individual.
What's her birthday?
9/15/68.
Okay. And what's your son's first name? You said Paul?
Paul Terry Murdaugh.
And what's his birthday?
Jason, do you have anybody
4.
coming through town that could stop and pick up that tent? I see lights off in the distance.
What are they covering them up?
I got some getting dressed now, Sheriff. I'll have somebody stop and grab it.
Tell them they don't have to do that. They don't need to. Preserve what we can.
653. Where's it at? I'm in town.
I should try to be Delta 8 because he's going to be the only one that's got access.
What's
to
Paul's
where it is
birthday?
right now.
Copy.
April 14th, 1999, sir.
Put it up as wide as you can. That's fine. You said 99?
Sir?
He was born in 99?
He was born April 14th, 1999.
Okay. What's your first name, sir?
My name is Alex Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
Let me ask you this. In your interactions with Mr. Murdaugh, was he able to understand your questions and respond appropriately to what you were asking?
Yes.
Was he catatonic in any way?
No. He was able to answer all the questions that I asked him.
Was he panicking in any way?
He seemed upset, but I wouldn't say panicky.
Did you notice any labored breathing or anything like that from Mr. Murdaugh?
Yeah, he was breathing heavily. Never once did he complain about not being able to breathe. I mean, there were fire rescue guys out there. He didn't ask for any kind of medical attention or anything like that due to not being able to breathe.
Richard Alexander Murdaugh?
You familiar with the location?
No. Hey, Cody, come around the truck and then go to the building.
Y'all, so we're
Come around the truck and then,
we went back a little bit. We were watching
yes.
when they're interviewing him at the scene, like right after it happened.
Who's that individual
But
right
I've
there?
got
I'm not sure of his name. I just know that
the
he works
live
for
video
Colby County
up right
Fire
now.
Rescue.
So when they're on a recess. So when it comes back on, we'll switch back to the live.
Carlton County Fire
Right now,
Rescue.
they're still on a recess.
In the background in the center of the screen, it looks like somebody's doing something with some yellow tape. Can you explain what that is to the jury, please?
That's correct. That's Deputy Pruitt, one of the deputies that I supervise. I instructed him to put up crime scene tape to include that vehicle. We put up crime scene tape to try to keep people out of the immediate crime scene area, preserve any possible evidence that's there.
At this point in time, had you noticed any evidence of firearms such as casings or spent shells or anything like that?
Yeah, as I was walking through, you can't necessarily see it on my body camera, but as I was walking through, I could see shell casings, particularly around Maggie's body.
All right. And a shell casing, would they be for like a rifle round or a pistol round?
They appear to be rifle rounds.
And could you tell just from walking by what type of ammunition at that point in time?
I couldn't tell what type. I could tell that they appear to be rifle, and that's about it.
And again, you weren't stopping to collect those. You were managing the scene as you described before.
That's correct.
Let's go over to that corner of the building.
I'm almost to you. Let me see what we have first, whether or not we're gonna handle that part or not.
What are you shining your light on right there?
So there in the background behind where Mr. Murdaugh is standing, you can see several sets of tire tracks. The grass was really wet that night, so those tracks appeared to be really fresh. So it caught my eye.
All right. And why did it catch your eye?
It just seemed odd that it appeared to be that many sets of tire tracks since he said he pulled up, went to the house, and came back. It just appeared that there were more than just that.
It appeared that there were more tracks than just that.
That's correct.
I see quite a few tire tracks in here. Were any of these you going in and out?
No, I came in here and I left one time and I came back.
Okay.
The rest of them, maybe
Okay.
from earlier, but
Okay.
only two are mine.
Did you go out this way at all?
No.
Village, right?
Hey, stay. Got a whole bunch of stuff right there. I don't want to disturb. Your best way is probably going to be back through those rocks because we can't get any tracks off those rocks anymore.
We'll go back around the other way we just came.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, I'll get that in a little bit.
Okay.
Whose vehicle are you approaching right now?
That was the vehicle that Mr. Murdaugh said that he had approached that scene in.
Was that a black Suburban to your recollection?
It is.
What unit's 23 on those
All right, y'all. Looks like they're back. Let's go back to the live. Let's switch back to the live
They
view.
bring the jury.
the jurors are present.
All right, thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Chaplain, resuming our testimony, I'm going to show you a handful of pictures. I'm going to mark, I've marked and I'm identify, ask you to please identify them.
No objection.
You offer them all into evidence?
I am.
They are admitted without objection.
Okay, permission to publish?
Yes.
And I think, Your Honor, I think we already established that the drone footage has been placed into evidence, and I would request permission to play that first, and then I'll go to the pictures. Sorry. Captain Chapman, as we were discussing earlier, you did describe the process of what you did with the drones and why you surveilled the area.
Took pictures with our drone just to give an overall. Some of the agents have different job descriptions that day. Some of my personnel had different job descriptions that day. In order to have something as a reference point to go back and work with later, we took the department issued drone and took a couple aerial videos so that we could use them for reference later.
And Your Honor, request permission for the witness to sort of direct the geography of the drone footage. If you would, please step down.
Sure.
And if you could identify for the jurors as the video is played, what we're actually looking at. I appreciate it.
In the image currently, what we see is the main house, the Murdaugh residence.
And
Left of that structure with the planted trees would be the main driveway that comes out.
all right, if you could identify that on the video, the driveway that you're referring to.
Here, then I'll walk up. Yes, sir. So this would be the main structure and the main driveway that comes out from it with the trees. Ladies and gentlemen, the main structure, a residential structure, and the main driveway that comes away from it with the trees.
All right, and now looking down the road a bit, Captain Chapman, this road that veers to the left or turns left, what is that road?
So that would have been the route that was described by Mr. Murdaugh as how he left his residence and came to the dog kennels, coming up the road with the planted trees, making a left here, ladies and gentlemen, there. And if you play the video a little farther, that road ends at the incident location with the dog kennels.
And if you would, please describe for us what we're actually looking at with this dog kennel area, identifying the structures and the entry point for the road, the main mailbox area.
Absolutely. So this would be the area coming from the main residence. When we arrived on scene that night, or when, at least when I arrived, right here, positioned with the headlights facing down this way, would have been Mr. Murdaugh's vehicle. You keep hearing reference of the airplane hangar or the main shed. That would have been the large structure here. The dog kennels are the smaller one you see in the background that run perpendicular, and the driveway goes out to the road. Do I need to show you, ladies and gentlemen, here? Was everyone able to see?
Please do it. Just go
Sure.
through what these structures are.
So again, the roadway coming from the main residence. Here you have what's been referred to as the hangar. Mr. Murdaugh's vehicle was parked in this general area here with the headlight shining down this direction. Dog kennels. This is the large grass area that we were referring to when we're talking about the tire impressions in the dew. And this is a separate structure that sits off to the side.
And where would the entry point for the Moselle Road be on this just still shot?
Following straight down between the hangar and the dog kennels, going all the way through the tree line, the Moselle Road entrance would be back here.
All right, I'm going to just play it one time without stopping. All right, thank you, Captain Chapman. I'm going to play the second drone video. If you would,
Y'all make sure to like the
please,
video.
please tell
It
us what
definitely
we're
helps
looking
out,
at
helps
from
the
this
channel out.
perspective right now.
Yes, sir. So this would be the back portion of the airplane hangar. The driveway, the vehicles at the bottom of the screen. This driveway goes back around and connects back to Moselle Road.
And is this the hangar that you were referencing?
This is the airplane hangar as we've been referring to it.
What is this structure on the top side of this image in the far back?
I believe that was a cleaning shed, for a processing shed for animals. If you're going to process a deer that you killed, it had like a walk-in freezer, sinks, floor with drain in it.
All right, describe to us what we're looking at from this perspective, if you would.
Certainly. So if you came in the Moselle entrance, which was the entrance that we were dispatched to, the 4147, and you turned by the mailbox off of Moselle Road and you came in the dirt driveway, you would be coming up between the two structures. You have your airport or airplane hangar on your right with the red tin roof, the dog kennel on your left. That was the
Hey, thanks for
vehicle that
stopping
Mr.
in.
Murdaugh was driving.
you
when-
later. Thank you
at
for
least
being here.
What was, he said he was driving when I arrived on scene. At the time, the flashers were flat. I believe they actually still are in the drone video. The hazard lights are on all the way back from where dispatch initially advised him to cut them on for arrival. The large shed in the background out there is just simply another tractor shed.
And Captain Chapman would you identify where the body of Paul Murdaugh was located when you arrived on
Yes, sir.
this picture?
Absolutely. Thanks for
So
being here,
the
Olivia.
Dog kennels on the left of your screen, ladies and gentlemen. If you were to look towards the end of that structure, right where the gravel and the roof line are, and then step back approximately 5-6 feet, that would have been the location of Paul's body.
And where would Maggie's body have been located?
And Maggie's body would have been just beyond the roof line of the red airplane hangar on the side closest to the Suburban.
The trajectory of the vehicle that Mr. Murdaugh was operating and actually left parked there, where would his headlights have been directed to?
As it sits now, which I believe is the same it was when I arrived on scene, the headlights were pointed on Paul's body.
And this structure just past the white roof, which is identified as the kennels, what's that run structure there?
I believe that was like a chicken coop or a chicken pen.
Mentioned before when we were talking about the tire tracks that you noticed in the dew of the grass, that you were trying to identify the location of those tracks. As part of your investigation in conjunction with Detective Rutland, did you identify this black truck that we see pictured here?
We did.
Was the black truck, did any of the tracks line up to that black truck?
No, sir. That's what got us back to that location, looking at the tire impressions, was that we were trying to determine if that was the vehicle we believe that Paul may have driven to the kennels.
And did you check the truck to see if it was physically warm to the touch or had
It
been turned on?
was not.
Pausing here, Captain Chapman, the kennel run, I think you already identified, is that the structure with the white roof?
Yes, sir.
the silverish white roof in the background.
Thanks for
on this
being here.
image.
Thanks for hanging out, you
And,
guys.
the feed room located where Paul,
I'd be
actually
talking a lot
was,
more, but I'm
sort
I'm
of
interested. I'm
straddled.
invested
Where
in
would that
listening
feed
right
room
now.
be in this image?
But if you guys have theories, if you have
You look
anything you
at
want to
the
say,
right,
type it up. We'll put it on the screen.
corner of that building, and you can see the white frame door just above the red roof. That would be the area of the feed room.
And with the court's permission, I'd ask the witness to identify that on the screen, if you would.
Thank you, Your Honor. This would be the area of the feed room here. This would have been the area of the feed room here.
And while you're there, Captain Chapman, would you please identify in this angle where Maggie Murdaugh would have been located?
Yes, sir. Maggie was in this area here. Here.
Look at the face, guys. Look at his face. Is he sad because it happened? And he lost his family, his wife and son, or is he sad because he got
Did you
caught?
become aware through the course of your investigation of footprints on the side of the hangar?
Yes.
How did that occur? What brought your attention to that first, and what did you do as a result?
Detective Rutland approached me at some point in time after her arrival with the search warrant that she had located a set of prints. The prints appeared to be a flat style print, like a flip flop or a sandal of some type.
Thank
And
you,
that they
William.
were
Appreciate it.
to the left of this hangar door in the dirt underneath the left lean-to of the hangar.
And if you mean to the left of the door, in the image, do you identify an orange lawnmower there?
That's correct. In between that mower and the wall.
If you would, describe what you did and what you and Detective Rutland decided to do to examine these footprints.
She came over and alerted me to the presence of the footprints or shoe impressions. I went over with her. We started at the side of the hangar here that you see in the image by the orange mower. At that particular point, you could only see those sets of tracks or shoe impressions in the dirt. We then walked around the other side, and you could see that they were also on the other side of the hangar, the far side of that structure. So then we made the decision to walk a line off of those tracks from one end to the other to ensure that there was no evidence of firearms, blood, anything underneath that hangar along those shoe impressions, which we did not locate anything but the single set of
If I'm on trial for
shoe
something like
impressions.
that, I'm not.
And they
gonna look at
appear
no
to
way.
go from one end
I'm
of the
gonna be
hangar
like-
to the other, turn around and come back.
If I didn't do it, you're gonna know. I'll be like,
I'm going to show you what's been entered into evidence. States Exhibit 193.
look at that. Does it look like he did it?
Are you familiar with that location?
Yes, sir.
Is that a still image of the area between the hangar and that lawnmower?
It is, sir.
And is that the location where you notice the treads, the footprints?
It is, sir.
I'm handing you what's been marked as States Exhibit 194. Could you please describe what you see in that picture?
This is a picture of the footprints along the edge of the hangar structure.
I'm handing you what's been marked and entered into evidence as States Exhibit
What does that sound?
195.
Somebody sneezing?
Please describe what you see in
Just hear
that
that?
picture.
Again, another photograph depicting the shoe impressions along the edge of the.
And those are the shoe impressions that you personally viewed on scene at Murdaugh.
Yes, sir.
I'm also handing you what's been entered into evidence as States Exhibit 200. Are you familiar with what that is a picture of?
These are the shoes that were on Miss Maggie at the time. I believe they're crime scene or autopsy photos from afterwards.
Is the prosecutor wearing a glove? It looked like his left hand was covered. Is he crying? That's tough, y'all. Is he crying because he got caught, or is he crying because he misses him? Or maybe he's crying because maybe he did it, but now he actually feels remorse.
Madam Chairman, we've seen a rear view of the car operated by Mr. Murdaugh that night. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
And are those headlines directly aligned with where Paul's body would have been laid?
Yes, sir.
And from this perspective, where was Maggie's body located?
Close to the front of the Green Ranger to the left of the vehicle.
And from which direction did Mr. Murdaugh indicate he drove to the scene from? Which direction would that have come from?
Bottom right-hand corner of the picture that you're seeing now.
If I could switch to.
What kind of law did he practice, y'all? Does anybody know what law he practiced?
All right, Captain Chapman, I'm just.
Oh, he's
asking
wearing
you
a
to
wrist
identify
guard
just very
on his
quickly.
hand.
These are
The
stills
prosecutor. Good to know.
from
I was curious. I was like, what is that? Is he wearing a glove?
DOD. What does that show?
What kind of
That's
law did
the,
Alex Murdaugh practice, y'all?
Dirt road between the
Anybody know?
hangar and the dog kennels.
Okay, that would be State's Exhibit 192. This is State's Exhibit 191. And what does that show?
That's the, like we said, a cleaning shed, processing shed for animals, had a walk-in freezer, floor with a drain in it.
I'm showing you State's Exhibit 190. What is that image of?
Looks like the area, the first two kennels closest to the
And does that reflect the two kennels with the two dogs on either side closest to the feed room?
closest to the feed room.
Okay. And I'm showing you what's marked as State's Exhibit 189.
That's the,
And is that another close-up of the water?
that's
on the
close
scene?
up of the water just outside the feed room.
And I'm referring to the pictures we just reviewed. This would be State's Exhibit 193. Is that where you physically walked with Detective Rutland?
It is, sir.
And to be clear, when you observed the footsteps in the sand there, were they the only footsteps present?
There was only one style of shoe impression when we first observed that went from one side of the hangar to the other and back. And it was that smooth style shoe impression.
And you say there and back, does that mean the footprints to you indicated they had walked one direction and then walked the opposite direction back? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, sir. We weren't able to tell at which point, which side they entered initially, but they walked completely from one side of the hangar all the way underneath the lean-to the other side of the hangar or turn around and come back.
I'm now showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 194. Describe the types of treads we're seeing in this picture, if you could.
Certainly. If you remember, I stated earlier that after locating the shoe impressions, Detective Rutland let me know that the impressions were there. I went over, we checked both sides and realized that they ran what we could tell with a flashlight from one side to the other. So we made the decision to walk straight through, keeping the shoe impressions that we were concerned about in between ourselves and the wall of the hangar structure, never crossing those actual shoe impressions. We went from one end to the other just to see if they were joined by any other shoe impressions, if there was any blood, if there were any weapons, so forth. We made one trip down and back, and we did not locate anything.
And I'm now showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 195. Would that be a close-up of these impressions that you observed?
It is, sir.
And specifically the items in the middle with the flat tread? Would those be the footprints that you noticed that night?
Those were the ones initially identified by Detective Rutland and pointed out to myself. The ones with the shoe impressions with the actual designs that would be left of those in this photograph, those are myself and Detective Rutland.
I'm going to move to publish what's been marked as and entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 196 and 197. These are images of sensitive nature, have the cover sheet. I've advised counsel and our table to obscure the monitors. Showing you what's been marked and entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 196. Are you familiar with what this is an image of?
Yes, sir.
What does this show?
That's the lower portion of victim Maggie's body.
And specifically referring to the lower portion of her body, but her footwear. Are these the footwear that you observed on her that evening?
Those are they appear to be an accurate reflection of what she was wearing the night I was there.
Were you able to compare those, the general size and shape of those foot treads to the ones that you personally observed on the side of that hangar?
General impression, they are similar in nature and design and size. There were no measurements physically taken by myself or Detective Rutland.
Thank you. I'm publishing what's been marked and placed into evidence as State's Exhibit 197. And this is a similar photograph with just a slightly different angle. Is that the same treads and same footwear that you observed previously?
Again, what we believe that what we saw on the side of the building is a very close match as far as design and size as to those.
I'm showing you now what's been marked and placed into evidence as State's Exhibit 200. Are you familiar with that? I know you already described it, but tell us again what we're looking at.
Again, those were the shoes that were removed from victim Maggie's body at the scene, and the ones that we were visibly comparing the shoe impressions to.
Thank you. You can turn the lights on. Just get out of your way. Did you at one point have a be on the lookout or a bolo placed on any in particular vehicle that night?
Yes, sir. I believe I explained earlier that we had asked if anything was missing from the scene and trying to determine how Maggie and Paul got to the dog kennels. And after checking the F-150 that was in the picture that showed you earlier, the dark colored F-150, and that the Ranger had a flat tire, neither one of those matched up. I actually asked Mr. Murdaugh if he knew how they got down there. And he said he wasn't sure, but they should have driven Paul's truck, which was described as a white Ford F-250. We noticed that the truck wasn't there. It wasn't up until that point that Mr. Murdaugh, probably with everything going on, did not realize the truck wasn't there. And at that point in time, to our units at our agency, it was boloed out as possibly having been taken from the scene or removed from the scene.
And what happened? Were you able to locate the car eventually?
That was done sometime that night while we were on scene the very following morning. And
Yeah,
I'd have
guys,
to look back
it's
at
live.
notes
It's
to tell you
happening right
exactly,
now.
but I believe it was
They're
around
live streaming the trial right now.
10:30, 10:45 the next morning. That
Please
vehicle
don't
was
forget that, hit
located
that like button.
just inside Hampton County off of Highway 63.
Captain Chapman, referring back to the tire tracks, I know you spent some effort trying to identify the source and origin of those tire tracks. When you were attempting to investigate those tire tracks with Detective Rutland, did you have a chance to then observe Mr. Murdaugh's demeanor?
Yes, sir. And we discussed, there were changes at the time.
What kind of changes?
Again, he did appear very upset, heavy breathing, distraught. When we asked the specific questions in regards to the tire impressions and we began looking at the tire impressions, it was just a change. The breathing slowed and he began to watch us work more closely, sometimes out the corner of his eye. And after we moved away from that area with the tire impressions, the demeanor change returned back to upset.
Beg the court's indulgence. No further questions from the state. Thank you, Captain Chapman.
Sir.
Captain, my name is Dick Harpoogan. I don't think we've met before.
No, sir.
I represent Alex Murdaugh. And let me ask you a couple questions. One, and let me deal with these in a different order. But you indicated that if Mr. Murdaugh had taken the pulse of tried to take the pulse of his dead son on his neck, or his wrists were under him, did he indicate to you he had tried to roll his son over?
To me, no, sir. He did not.
Okay, tried to move him at all. Secondly, if he did get blood on his fingers or hands, were you aware that there was blood found on his shorts?
I was not, sir. Again, I was asked only about my visible observations and just did not see anything at the time.
Right, nothing on his shirt that
No,
would
sir.
indicate. Okay.
And I was unaware that anything was found.
But you're not saying that you didn't see anything that would confirm, but he didn't smear
That's
blood on
correct.
himself. Right.
That is correct.
But you're not saying that you have evidence he didn't try to check the pulse of his dead son?
I am not. No, sir.
Okay. So, and I think you indicated that his demeanor was consistent with somebody who had just found his wife and son butchered.
His demeanor upon my arrival and initial conversation with him was someone who was upset.
Okay, now let's talk. Just a moment ago, you said something about when you started looking at the tire tracks in the grass.
It was a change of demeanor, yes, sir.
Well, a change of demeanor that perhaps he thought you had some evidence that would point to the killer of his wife and child.
Are you asking me if that was the change?
Was the demeanor consistent with that?
It was simply a change in demeanor.
Right.
And could it be?
Yes.
Sure, it absolutely could be. It was just a noted change in demeanor.
His interest perked
Exactly.
up. Right.
Yes, sir.
You were over there looking at tire tracks, and perhaps you had discovered a different car or a different tire track, and did you follow all those tire tracks?
We attempted to follow out everything we could. As I mentioned earlier, it was just impressions, dew impressions, wet impressions, not actual tracks.
Did you take pictures?
By the time that we did that, the rain started and SLED's crime scene was arrived. Again, we were rushing against the weather. The images, I believe we discussed earlier, were the only ones captured by body cam.
Right.
And
It's the body cam is not.
our focus at the time was to secure the largest items of evidence that were identifiable to make sure that the weather didn't damage them. And by that time, SLED's team was on scene.
Okay, and now there was two other sets of tracks, one of them coming out of the shed. I believe your notes indicate that was the caretaker or the caretakers. Now, was that the caretaker that took care of the dogs or somebody else?
There was a set of tire tracks or impressions that went through the dirt underneath the hangar
Right.
lean-to. Initially, we didn't know whose they were, what vehicle had left those tracks. In the drone footage, you can actually see the agent still processing those. Believe that later, I was told that they matched the tire tracks of someone that came to take care of the dogs.
Okay. Now, we heard from the fire chief a little while ago. Were you here in the courtroom when he
No,
testified?
sir, I was not.
Okay. He indicated that there were, on the road that led out to the Moselle Highway, you know where I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
You know, could we put the drum? Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. You do that? Email.
Overview of the house and kennel.
What now?
Overview of the house and kennel.
I think I like this. Well, no, go ahead and give me the first one. It may be in there. Okay, so were you informed that the chief of police had found some tire tracks on the road leading in or out to the Moselle Highway behind? And if you look at the screen, this road where the cars are parked on either side of the road, that is that road, correct?
For clarification, the chief of the fire department or chief of the police department?
I'm sorry, chief of the fire department.
Just want to make sure I was answering correctly, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, I was not made aware by Chief McRoy of anything back there, but it doesn't mean that he didn't see something.
He apparently informed your deputies of that. They never communicated that to you?
I was not made aware of any tire impressions of potential evidence down that driveway.
And I think Sergeant Green
Yes, sir.
indicated that it was communicated to him by the fire chief. Were you aware of that?
I was not, sir.
Until I just said it, you were not aware of that?
I was not made aware of anything that they believe was a possible extension of the scene that went down that driveway. No, sir, I wasn't.
If the fire chief had seen, and he testified he saw distinct tire tracks on that road, he thought it had some evidence.
See you later, Olivia. Thanks for popping in. Thanks for all the info.
Had you been made aware of them, would you have taken photographs, or I guess they don't use plaster casts anymore? That's,
We still do. Yes, sir. I would have done my best to preserve it, whether that meant photographic form or protection by other means from the approaching weather. I would have.
okay, so go ahead and let that run for a minute.
Thank you. Yeah, guys, I'm always investigating the paranormal stuff, but if you think about it, the other side of that is typically murders, darker things that happen in places that I go to investigate. So I've always been
Now,
a true crime junkie as well.
watch
And
where
I
I'm
think it's
going.
Yes, sir.
awesome to see this kind of
These are the
stuff
dog- that's
and
the
help
dog
kind of
show right
bring
there, right?
light to these
That is correct,
the
sir.
real
And
situations
right
that are
around
happening
it
in
here
real
would
time
have
as
been
well.
where,
Absolutely.
Paul's body was.
Close to the end of that
I'm
structure.
glad you guys
yes, sir.
like it.
And Maggie's
Thank
body
you.
would have been on which side of Alex's car?
The end of the red roof on the driver's side.
Right. Now, are you aware that he discovered the bodies, called 911, drove back up to the house, and then came back down?
From listening to his statement and from the 911 call, I was aware of it.
And
Yes,
y'all, I mean, he went and got a shotgun, came back,
yes, sir.
and the shotgun was there, which sort of corroborates his statement, right?
I was made aware of that, yes, sir, that Sergeant Green took the shotgun from him upon his arrival and secured it.
And you can also hear the seatbelt dinging going on as he drives away, you know?
You can hear that in the background of the 911 call.
Right. So this is where he came back, not necessarily when he pulled up to begin with, correct?
My understanding that is the way the vehicle was when he returned and the initial officers arrived on scene.
Right. So you don't know where the car was positioned. We first came down and discovered Maggie's body and Paul's body, correct?
My knowledge to it would be limited to his description of having taken a very similar route back to the house,
Right,
but close, but not exact. Yes, sir.
Now, what is this green hedge or whatever?
If I'm not mistaken, it was a grapevine, but the structure on the other side of it, a chicken coop.
Okay. And you remember how tall that grapevine was?
I don't know exactly, but looking at the image, it's fairly tall,
10 feet
I would say at least.
at least. Now, if you were at the house looking down this way, there's some pine trees between this area and the house.
There are, sir.
And then there's, if you're trying to look at the dog pens, there's obviously a 10-foot at least, what'd you call it?
The kennels,
No, the vine,
grapevines.
grapevine,
Yes, sir.
10 feet tall. So you could not see from the house the dog kennel because of the pine trees and the grapevine, correct?
I would venture to say you could not see
Okay.
the position of Paul or Maggie's body from the house
At night,
at night.
right? And this is not a well-lit area down here, is it?
I don't recall it being extremely well lit, no, sir. There was some artificial light, but I wouldn't call it extremely well lit.
Okay. So go ahead and continue running the video, please. And this was on the next morning?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Keep going. Okay, stop. That black truck, whose black truck is that?
That's the vehicle that we checked that evening that I believe was titled as a farm truck, just around the farm truck.
And is that the one you checked to see if it had been driven lately?
That's the one that Detective Rutland and I looked to see if those wet tire impressions matched up to the position of that vehicle when we arrived. Those particular impressions did not, and the vehicle was not warm to the touch.
Okay, but that would have been the previous night?
The night of the incident, when
Right.
we arrived, yes, sir.
The night prior to this. But that, could Paul have driven that truck down there?
It would depend on what time he drove the truck down there, but the impressions that we were looking at, that we referenced when asked earlier by the Assistant Attorney General, they did not come to
They
the
did
back
not
of
come
that
from that.
vehicle. They didn't come from that vehicle. Did he drive that vehicle to the scene? I can't tell you that yes or no, but the impressions that she and I were looking at did not match the position of that vehicle.
Right.
Yes, sir.
But Paul earlier could have driven that down there.
He could, it's very feasible he could have driven anything out there that night or earlier in that day, but just not that vehicle for those particular set of impressions.
Okay, go ahead. Okay. Back that up just a little bit, please. Back it up a little bit more. Back it up a little bit more. Back it up. Okay, let it run. Now, stop. So the tracks that you found from the caretaker, where were they?
In the image that you're looking at now, ladies and gentlemen, they would have been to the right of the open door in the center, underneath that large lean-to section. So the right
Could you
side of
come
it.
down here and point it out for me?
Your Honor, may I?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. You can actually see the agent's feet there where she's still actually processing.
Okay. Were there any other tire tracks? Any other tire tracks? Go ahead and take it.
Thanks.
That y'all processed other than those tire tracks?
To my knowledge, that was the only set that they actually, I believe the only set that they actually processed. By then, the only one left that wasn't damaged by weather as well.
Okay. Go ahead. Keep going. Stop. So, and this road here goes out to Moselle Highway, right?
If you were to take the right T there
Yep.
by the silver trucks,
Yep.
if you took the right, that would go out to Moselle Road. The left just loops around the airplane hangar.
Okay. And if the fire chief had indicated there were tire impressions back here in the dirt, he would have taken pictures or gotten plaster casts or something, right?
If I had been made aware that there was something there that someone thought may possibly be evidence, I would have done my best to secure it, but I was not made aware of any of that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Keep going. Okay, I'm done with this one. Can you put the other one up, please? That's the main house, the white building there.
Yes, sir. The Murdaugh residence.
All right, keep going. While that's running, you would come down that driveway, take a left at that road, stop. And that, if you kept going straight, you hit the Moselle Highway, right?
If you continued straight out the driveway with the planted trees on either side, that would be a separate entrance from the farm entrance.
Right.
It would have been the main entrance to the residence itself off of Moselle Road.
Right, the main entrance to come to the residence.
That's
If
correct.
you're going to the residence, you come in that entrance.
That is
If you're
correct.
going down to the dog pens, that area, the farm area, you take the entrance with the
I would assume so.
post office box on it. Okay. Go ahead. And. That's actually all I need out of that. Thank you. Let me ask you a few more questions. If I could see. The photos of the footwear, I think the flip-flops or whatever. In one of your reports, you described that as it looked to you like someone had been pacing. Is that correct?
I did describe it as pacing, I believe,
Is that accurate?
simply because it goes down, turns around, and comes back. It doesn't appear to veer off anywhere in between. And there's nothing, it doesn't start anywhere in particular, and anywhere in particular. It goes all the way across, turns around, and comes all the way back.
Okay, and the pictures that, and I'm going to look at them here. Could I have those? The pictures that were put into evidence a moment ago. Can I use the Elmo, please? Right. Okay. I can't see this. Huh.
Guys, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to jump off for a little bit, but click the link. It's in the description if you want to keep watching the stream that I'm watching. But unfortunately, I got to jump off for a little bit. But I might be going live on TikTok here in just a second, maybe about 10 minutes. Let me know. But I'll see you guys. I'll see you guys after a while. If you want to keep watching this, the link is down in the bio. Thanks for being here, guys. And I'm going to be following this case pretty closely, so make sure you subscribe, like the video, and subscribe, y'all. I'll see you soon.
So as we see in this picture.